acknowledge and thank on behalf of the family of Lisa McPherson those who traveled from across the United States and actually from around the world to come and protest the preventable and tragic death of Lisa McPherson. The people who demonstrate and who are planning to demonstrate tonight and as well as tomorrow morning apparently, to my surprise, take great risk in doing so. I would never have believed that in the 18 years I've been practicing law. But I have learned more about Scientology in the last 11 months than I thought I would ever learn nor care to learn. And I can tell you that it's very dangerous. Lisa McPherson suffered preventable, extremely preventable death. And I think yesterday in the St. Petersburg Times, it was reported by the Scientologist lawyers that they have new evidence from their 3 medical state examiners that Lisa died spontaneously. I can tell you that when I relayed that information to my medical experts, who consist of varying degrees of expertise and specialties, such as a doctor who specializes in torture and death, a medical examiner who specializes in post-mortem chemical analysis, and is actually the grandfather of all who specialize in post-mortem chemical analysis, laughed at that suggestion. So when they come out and tell you that they have new information with their experts, where are the reports? Name the experts. Let's see what they were told. Let's see what evidence they were given. Because, as you all know, the medical examiner, Dr. Joan Wood, has not released the entire autopsy evidence because there's still, after 2 years, an ongoing criminal investigation. So we only have the partial information. We do not have the photographs, and we do not have the rest of the tissue samples. We only have a partial rendering. But with that partial rendering, we do know that a BUN level, which is the urea nitrogen level, of 300, according to all medical textbooks, according to our medical experts, is the highest level of dehydration a human being could possibly suffer. And we do know that if Lisa McPherson, let's just say all the Scientologists, including the medical doctors who are watching her, were just totally ignorant of life, had no clue what a healthy person looked like, and had no clue what a distressed, physically distressed individual looked like. We do know that on December 5th, 1995, had they taken Lisa McPherson to the Morgan Plant Hospital, more likely than not, she would be alive today and living back at home in Dallas, Texas. We do know that her life could have been saved even with Scientology caretakers taking her to Morgan Plant Hospital instead of 45 minutes away to a Newport Richey hospital, whereas we all now know she was pronounced dead on arrival, and she was filthy and dirty, and her hair was matted, according to the head nurse of the emergency room department. We do know today that the initial statements made by Church of Scientology representatives when this story broke in January of 1997 are totally inaccurate. We know that Lisa McPherson was not walking the beaches of Clearwater with her friends in Scientology while she was held against her will for 17 days from November 18, 1995 to December 5th. We do know that she was persuaded by a group of Scientologists to leave the emergency room of the Morgan Plant Hospital on November 18, 1995. We do know, according to the records of Scientology, the Church of Scientology, that they provided to me through the civil litigation, Lisa McPherson's forced isolation started at 2:45 p.m. on November 18, 1995, ended at 3 or 3:15 p.m. on November 18th, after which where it says that she tried to leave. And thereafter, we know the records are silent. And at 6 p.m., Lisa McPherson had escaped from isolation and was driving her Jeep down Fort Harrison. And we do know that she rear-ended a person stopped for a red light with an accident in the right-hand lane, ever so slightly, and got out and spoke in a robotic fashion to the surprise of the two paramedics who were there attending the other accident victims from a prior accident. We do know that Lisa McPherson followed all the commands and directions of the paramedics, and when the paramedics were assured that she had no injury from that accident, and she said, "I am not injured," but she couldn't tell anyone where she lived in Clearwater. The only address she could give was Dallas, Texas, where her mother lived, was her childhood home. We do know that as the paramedics were getting ready to leave, Lisa took off her clothes. They brought her back into the ambulance, and they said, "Lisa, what are you doing?" And she said, "Don't worry, I'm not crazy. I know exactly what I'm doing. I needed to get your attention because I need help. I need to talk to someone." Unfortunately, against medical advice, she returned to the Church of Scientology Fort Harrison Hotel. Why? It was against medical advice, but my experts tell me it's the same reason a battered spouse returns home. It's this control, and it's this control that's extremely dangerous. The folks that came here today came to honor the memory of Lisa McPherson. The Church of Scientology had tried to stop two of those individuals from exercising their constitutional rights. One of those individuals, Keith Henson, his restraining order was entered Tuesday morning, even though the Church of Scientology knew that I was representing him and wanted notice of a hearing, but I was not given that opportunity. So Mr. Henson will not be here because the temporary restraining order is in effect until December 11th, which makes his presence now not necessary or a waste of time. The temporary restraining order against Dennis Ehrlich was entered by Judge Bruce Boyer today after a 3-hour hearing out of an abundance of caution, because the evidence did show that these allegations of Mr. Ehrlich being somehow violent were from hearsay documents, documents posted anonymously on the internet, and from his ex-wife back in the 70s or 80s. But out of abundance of caution, the judge entered a temporary restraining order, keeping Mr. Ehrlich 50 yards away from only 3 out of the 14 locations that the Church of Scientology desired to keep him away from. Mr. Ehrlich knew in advance that temporary restraining orders are issued routinely. Courts do not want to take a chance that they're wrong, and so he recognizes that. But the rest of you are not subject to a temporary restraining order, although the representative of the church wanted to do that and said it would probably have been a good idea. But I think they're not foolish enough to try to get a whole group of peaceful demonstrators restricted from exercising their constitutional rights. So the family of Lisa McPherson, and by the way, I need to clear something up that Mike Rinder has accused me of doing, and I need to set the record straight. I've received so many phone calls about this. One little statement that I'm surprised everyone is curious about. Here it is. When I was called and asked to be the attorney to represent, well, not to represent actually, to just talk to the mother of Lisa McPherson, I traveled to Dallas, Texas in January of 1997. I met Fannie McPherson in her home while she was on oxygen, dying of cancer, because there was no longer any hope to keep her alive. And I conversed with Fannie McPherson for 4 hours, being careful not to wear her out. but she was there with her sisters, and she had decided that even though the church had told her that Lisa died from meningitis back in, they told her this back in December of 95 and January of 96, she knew that that couldn't possibly be the truth. And she also told me that at the funeral, when the Scientologists showed up, they told her that, remember when we told you Lisa died from meningitis? Well, we just want you to know that you're probably going to hear in the future that that's not really correct. And with that, they left. And she was there to wonder what in the world were they talking about. We know today that Lisa did not die from staph infection. We know that Lisa didn't die from meningitis. But we do know that she died from dehydration, which causes a thickening of the blood. And with the lack of any movement, lo and behold, you get a pulmonary embolism. But all that said, and all of the arguments about medical science, she died from dehydration. It could have been prevented. When I left Fannie McPherson in January of 97, she retained my services because she decided that she needed to seek the truth about her daughter's death, truth that was never forthcoming from the Church of Scientology. So when Mr. Render says that Dal Lieber, Lisa's aunt, hired me to just go after the Church of Scientology, that is not correct. Fannie McPherson retained my services to seek justice for her daughter's death. Fannie McPherson retained me, signed the contract, signed the probate papers, appointed her sister, Dal Lieber, to be the personal representative of the estate. And it's not Dal Lieber who is suing Scientology. It is the estate of Lisa McPherson who is suing Scientology, among others now, as you probably know. Again, thank you on behalf of the family of Lisa McPherson, which consists now of, in case you want to know, aunts, an uncle, and a lot of cousins, who saw Lisa for the last time alive New Year's Eve, 1994, and who were told by Fannie McPherson that Lisa told her in November of 1995 that she was coming back to Dallas, and she would be there for Christmas. Thank you.